kicked out as a teen, but now they expect me to take care of them. I was 16 when they kicked me out. It wasn't a huge surprise, though. I'd been rebellious my whole life, pushing buttons, challenging authority, questioning everything they ever told me. But when I look back on it now, I realize just how naive I was. I thought that if I kept fighting back, if I kept refusing to conform, they'd eventually see it was just me trying to find myself, trying to grow. Instead, they saw it as a refusal to respect them, and one day, they reached their breaking point. The argument started like any other. I was late coming home. Again, I wasn't doing anything bad, really, just out with my friends, getting into trouble the way teenagers do. Nothing too serious. But when I walked through that front door, my mom was standing there, red-faced, her hands on her hips, and that look in her eyes, the one that told me she was done. "You're late. Again." I shrugged. "It's just a few hours." She shook her head. "This isn't a few hours. This is every time. And your father and I are tired of it." I felt the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I could see my dad sitting at the kitchen table, his face buried in his hands, like he was trying to block out what was happening. I didn't understand it then, but now, I realized they were both exhausted by me. Exhausted by the constant back and forth, the arguing, the endless battles. It wasn't the first time we'd fought, and it wouldn't be the last. But something in that moment felt different. They were serious this time. The cracks in our family, which I'd ignored for so long, were now too wide to ignore. "We're done," my mom said, her voice trembling with anger. "Pack your things. You're leaving." At first, I thought it was a joke. A sick joke, maybe, but I couldn't believe they were serious. My parents had always told me they were doing this because they loved me, that I would understand someday, but I never expected them to actually follow through. I was their son. They were supposed to love me unconditionally, weren't they? "I don't need this right now." I snapped, my voice rising, matching the anger in hers. "You can't just kick me out." But the look in my dad's eyes, he wasn't going to stop her. He didn't even speak up, just sat there, looking at me like I was a stranger. "You don't listen," my mom said. "We've tried everything. We've tried talking. We've tried being patient. But you won't change. You're not welcome here anymore." I froze, the weight of her words crashing over me. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to scream, to fight back. But another part of me, the part one didn't want to admit, was scared. They were serious. This wasn't a punishment. This was a final decision. I wish I could say I left with some sense of clarity or understanding. But I didn't. All I could feel was a deep, gnawing sense of abandonment. They hadn't even given me a chance to explain myself. They hadn't tried to understand what I was going through, what I needed. They just made their decision, and I was the one who had to face the consequences. I grabbed a bag, not knowing what to pack, but just knowing I had to leave. I didn't even say goodbye. I just walked out the door. And as I stepped out into the cold night, with nothing but the clothes on my back and a small bag of belongings, I remember thinking that my life had just changed forever. No more family dinners. No more shared holidays. No more home. I wasn't a kid anymore. I was on my own. I spent the next few days in a daze, crashing with friends, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But every night, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling of whatever couch I'd ended up on, wondering where it had all gone wrong. I was angry. No, I was furious. I didn't deserve this. I didn't ask for any of it. But there was a small part of me, buried deep inside, that wondered if maybe, just maybe, I'd pushed them too far. Maybe I'd given them no other choice but to let me go. I stayed away from home for as long as I could, not knowing where else to turn. It wasn't until I got a message from my mom a week later that I finally went back. I was mad. So mad that she'd thrown me out without any explanation. But when she asked me to come back and talk, I hesitated. It wasn't like I had anywhere else to go. When I walked back into the house, it felt different. I don't think it was a physical space that had changed, but something in the air. It was tense, like we were walking around on eggshells. They had told me they loved me, that they were sorry things had escalated the way they did. but there was no forgiveness in their eyes. The damage had been done, and I could feel it. I spent the next few months bouncing from place to place, never feeling at home anywhere. I stayed with friends who had their own issues, people who didn't understand what I was going through, and most nights, I sat alone in my room, feeling like an outsider in my own life. But one thing I knew for sure, I couldn't go back. They had made their decision, and I had to live with it. I had to survive. The anger lingered, simmering under the surface, but I buried it deep. I had to keep moving forward. There was no other choice. That's when I started to grow up, really grow up. I had no safety net. I had no one to depend on but myself. I got a job, any job, to make ends meet. I did what I had to do to get by. It was hard, damn hard, but I learned. And eventually, I figured it out. I became independent, self-sufficient. But in the process, I built walls around my heart. And though I told myself it was just to protect myself, I knew it was more than that. It was because of them, because they had thrown me away. And even though I was doing fine, the scar they left never quite healed. The days blurred together after that. I was barely 16, and suddenly I was trying to navigate life without a family. At first, I tried to make sense of what had happened, replaying that night over and over in my head. Was it really my fault? Did I deserve to be thrown out? But none of it added up. It didn't make sense. They were my parents, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and yet they just let me go. I couldn't dwell on it for too long, though I had to survive. I stayed with a few friends in the first few weeks, but I knew it wasn't going to last. People have their own lives, and being a teenager with no real support system was hard on them too. So I figured it out. I found a cheap room to rent in a sketchy part town. The rent was low, and the landlord didn't ask questions. I didn't need anything more than a roof over my head at that point. Life wasn't glamorous. It was a complete opposite. I remember that first night I spent in my new place, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the walls that were too thin and too stained to be anything other than temporary. I wasn't even sure how I was supposed to make it through. I was young, scared, and lonely, but I couldn't let anyone see that, not even myself. I worked odd jobs, whatever I could find. Fast food, dishwashing, picking up hours at a convenience store. Nothing glamorous, but it kept me afloat. My friends helped me out as much as they could, offering rides or letting me crash on their couch when things got bad. But I knew I couldn't ask for too much. I had to prove I could do it on my own, even if that meant swallowing my pride. I'd often think about my parents, especially late at night when I couldn't sleep. Were they thinking about me? Did they miss me? There were times I wanted to reach out, but I stopped myself. After all, they were the ones who'd thrown me out. I was done with them, or so I told myself. But deep down, the questions lingered. Was this what they really wanted from me? Had they really thought I was beyond saving? In the mornings, I'd walk to work, past the houses that looked like they were filled with warmth and family, the kind of homes I used to take for granted. The contrast stung, but I had no choice but to keep going. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. I had bills to pay. I had to make sure I ate. I had to make sure I didn't get evicted. I was the only one who could take care of me now. I learned a lot during that time. How to stretch a paycheck until it was practically a joke. How to make friends with the people who could offer you a meal when you were too broke to buy your own. How to hide the exhaustion in your eyes when you hadn't slept in days because the shift never ended. How to pretend like everything was fine when it wasn't. But I got stronger. Eventually, I found a job that paid a little better, and I was able to get a better apartment. The first time I moved into a place where I didn't have to worry about rats in the walls or neighbors who didn't care, it felt like I'd won a small victory. I still wasn't happy, though. It's hard to be happy when you feel like you've lost everything, when you've been cut off from the very people who were supposed to love you. But the thing is, survival becomes your new focus. There's no room for sorrow or regret when you're constantly just trying to stay afloat. And then, slowly, life started to shift. I got promoted at work, made more money, and was able to take control of my situation. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was constantly running from something. I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck anymore. I had my own routine, my own life. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. But there was still a part of me that wasn't at peace. The anger never fully went away. It simmered beneath the surface, and it made me cold toward anyone who tried to get close. I kept people at arm's length, never letting anyone in too far, because it was easier to push people away than to risk being hurt again. I tried to find some normalcy in my life. I went to college, got a degree, and built a career. But it was always there, this gnawing emptiness that I didn't know how to fill. I was angry at the world, at the system, at my parents. They had taken so much from me. And though I was proud of the man I had become, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been robbed of my childhood, of my chance at something that felt secure. Years went by, and I kept moving forward. But I couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. There was always a part of me that wondered if my parents ever thought about me, ever regretted their decision. Did they even miss me? It wasn't until years later that I found out the answer. I had built a life for myself by then, or at least that's what I told myself. Things were stable, and I wasn't fighting to survive anymore. I'd learned how to play the game. The world had a way of pushing people down, but I wasn't going to stay down. I was better than that. But despite all the progress, there was still that lingering hole in my chest. I wasn't exactly lonely. I had friends, a decent job, a place I could call my own. But there were days when the weight of everything I'd gone through would catch up with me. I was just tired of the fight, tired of the walls I'd built around myself. Then came the call. It was late on a Tuesday evening, and I was at home, winding down after a long day at work. I just finished eating a quick dinner, nothing fancy as usual, and was about to relax in front of the TV when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't pick it up. I was used to robocalls, telemarketers, or whatever other nonsense people try to sell, but for some reason I did. Maybe it was a quiet, nagging feeling in the back of my mind that told me I needed to. Hello. My voice was guarded, the way it always was when I didn't recognize a number. Is this Ryan? The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, but there was something about it that made my stomach tighten. I hesitated. Yeah, who's this? There was a long pause before the person spoke again, and when they did, my world tilted. It's your mom. My heart stopped. My breath caught in my chest. It felt like the room suddenly went cold, and I swear I could hear the sound of my pulse in my ears. My mom, the woman who had thrown me out when I was a teenager, the woman who hadn't tried to reach out to me since, the one who had given up on me without a second thought. I didn't even know what to say. My mind raced. I felt anger bubbling up, mixed with confusion, but also curiosity. Why was she calling me now? Mom. I finally managed to say, my voice hoarse. What? Why are you calling me? I know it's been a long time, she said, her voice shaking slightly. But I need to talk to you. Something's happened. Can we meet? I wasn't sure what to feel. After all these years, after everything that happened, here she was asking to meet, to talk. I had spent so many years pretending that I didn't care, pretending that I didn't need her. But now, with her voice on the phone, I could feel something inside me cracking, like a dam breaking after years of holding back the water. What's this about? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I'll explain when we meet, she said. Please, Ryan, I need to see you. I need to explain. I wanted to say no. I wanted to hang up, to not give her the satisfaction of knowing she could still reach me. But the words didn't come. Instead, I found myself agreeing to meet her. Fine, I said, my voice flat. Where and when? She gave me an address, one I didn't recognize, and we agreed to meet the next day. She didn't say much more, but I didn't need her to. I already knew what this meeting would be. She wanted something. Maybe it was closure. Maybe she wanted to make amends. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Either way, I didn't trust her, but I was still curious. And that curiosity weighed heavily on me the whole night. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. The same face I'd seen for so many years. The face of the woman who had given up on me. I couldn't stop thinking about what she would say. Why now? Why after all these years? Was she really sorry? Was she really trying to make things right? In the end, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew one thing for sure. I was going to have to face her. I couldn't run anymore. Not from her. Not from this. The next afternoon, I drove to the address she gave me. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but I couldn't turn back now. The whole drive there, I kept my mind busy, telling myself I was ready for whatever came next. But when I pulled up to the building, my stomach turned. It was a small coffee shop in a quiet part of town. Nothing fancy. I didn't expect anything more, but something about the simplicity of the place made the situation feel too real. I parked my car and sat for a moment, staring at the front door. I could feel the weight of the past settling on me, pressing down on my chest. And for a second, I thought about driving away, just leaving, pretending none of this was happening. But I didn't. I opened the door, walked in and looked around. And there she was, sitting at a table by the window, looking exactly the same as I remembered, maybe a little older, maybe a little thinner, but her eyes, those same eyes, were the same. She looked up when she saw me, and for a split second, I almost thought I saw a flicker of relief in her face. But I didn't let my guard down. Not yet. I walked toward her, each step feeling heavier than the last. I could feel the eyes of the other customers on me, but I didn't care. I was here now, and whatever happened next, I was ready for it. Or at least, that's what I told myself. "Ryan," she said softly when I reached the table, her voice hesitant. I'm glad you came." I didn't say anything. I just sat down. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to someone who's hurt you so badly? What words could ever fix that? For a moment, there was nothing but silence between us. But this time, I wasn't the one who was going to break it. I sat down across from her, trying to keep my expression neutral. I could feel my heart beating faster than normal. There was a strange tension in the air, a mix of old memories and new ones being formed in real time. She looked older, of course. Her hair was grayer, and there were more lines around her eyes. But those eyes were still the same. They still carried the weight of all the years she'd been absent from my life. For a moment, I didn't know where to start. I wanted to say something, anything, but all the words felt trapped in my throat. How do you begin to talk to someone who has spent so many years out of your life? How do you even begin to address the pain they caused you? I took a deep breath. I couldn't do this in silence. I couldn't let her control the conversation. Not anymore. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice cold and distant, though it took every ounce of effort to keep it steady. "Why did you throw me out? Was I really that much of a burden? Was I really that much of a disappointment?" Her face faltered for a moment, the guilt evident in her expression, but she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "It wasn't like that, Ryan," she said softly, her hands trembling as she reached for a coffee cup. "It wasn't about you being a burden. It was about us, your father and I. We didn't know what to do anymore. We didn't know how to handle you. It was hard, Ryan. I know you don't understand that, but it was..." I wanted to lash out, to tell her that she didn't understand me, that they never tried to understand me. But the anger didn't come the way I expected. Instead, it was a hollow, empty feeling that filled me. The anger had been replaced with resignation. I wasn't going to get the answers I wanted, and I had to face that. "So you just gave up on me?" I said, my voice quieter now. Just like that. "After everything we went through, after all the years I spent trying to make you proud, you just gave up on me?" She looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting around the coffee cup. And for a moment, I thought she might cry, but the tears never came. Instead, she wiped her face, looking back at me with a sad, apologetic expression. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I know I failed you. I know I didn't give you what you needed, and I regret that every day. But I didn't know how to help you, and I didn't know how to help myself either." I sat back in my chair, my mind spinning. Regret, apologies, all these words that didn't feel like enough. After all these years, was this really all she had to offer me? I had spent so long building my life, trying to forget the hole she left when she walked away. I didn't need her apologies. I needed her to be there when I needed her most. I spent so many years trying to forget you. I said, the words coming out almost too quickly. I had to grow up on my own. I had to figure everything out on my own. You didn't just leave me, Mom. You left me with this anger, this resentment that I can't shake. And now you want to come back into my life like nothing ever happened. Her eyes filled with tears now, and for the first time in this conversation, I felt a pang of something, guilt, maybe, or a brief flash of sympathy. But I quickly shoved it down. Sympathy wasn't going to fix anything. Sympathy wouldn't change the years I spent feeling abandoned, the years I spent growing up without the one person who should have cared for me the most. I know I can't change the past, she whispered, her voice trembling. I know nothing I say will make up for the hurt I caused you, but I want to make it right, Ryan. If you'll let me, I know I can't undo what's been done, but I want to try. I want to be there for you now, in whatever way you allow me to. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to yell at her, to tell her that it was too late for any of this, that she had no right to just waltz back into my life after everything she'd done. But another part of me, the part I'd buried so deep for so long, wanted to believe her. Maybe it was because deep down, I still wanted to be loved by her. I still wanted her approval. I still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could make up for the years she'd missed. But I had to be strong. I had to stay firm in my conviction that I didn't need her. I had already survived without her. I'd built my life without her. I wasn't some child anymore, desperate for affection. I wasn't going to let her walk back in like nothing had happened. I don't need you to fix anything, I said, my voice quiet but resolute. I've been fine without you. I don't need you to come in and tell me how sorry you are, because sorry isn't going to change anything. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I understand. I do. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I wanted to try. I wanted to reach out before it was too late. I looked at her, the woman who had been a stranger to me for so long, and realized that she was just as lost as I had been. She was just as broken, just as much a product of her own mistakes as I was. It didn't make me feel better, but it made me see that maybe this wasn't entirely her fault. Still, I couldn't let myself soften. Not yet. Not after everything. Maybe one day, I said, getting up from the table. But not today. I didn't wait for her to reply. I just walked out, the door closing behind me with a soft click. And as I stood outside, in the cold air, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to forgive her. Maybe I never would. But I knew one thing for sure. I had made my peace with it. It was time to move on. For both of us.